Hi and welcome to the online video blog with Cameron Bailey. I'm Cam the Cameraman. You can catch me at camthecameraman.com or check out the YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about framing, and I can tell you I was just a touch nervous as I set up the camera today. Knowing that I was going to be talking about framing, I had to make sure that I got it all right. So hopefully in this instance I have got it all right, and I'm pretty sure I do. Let's just talk a little bit about framing. Let's start off with some basic shot types. I'm going to use some web pages here, and let's look at some basic shot types. Important to know these, even if you're not using them for video blogging per se, but if you are using, working with camera operators, or even just thinking through shot listing and those sorts of things, it's really important to know the shot types so you can sort of describe what you're wanting. Starting at the most wide, an extreme wide shot, a very wide shot, a wide shot, moving through to a mid shot, an MCU, close-up, an extreme close-up, and then a cutaway. I want to just talk a little bit and just very quickly about these. In online video, we want to make sure most of our shots are a little tighter than they would be in traditional video production. You tend to use a lot more close-ups and medium close-ups than you would in normal production, purely because the screen size is so much smaller and people are having to often watch it in a little window inside the web browser. So we want to make sure that we can that our mouths are seen and our eyes, which are the windows to the soul, as they say, and we want to make sure that they're being able to be seen. And the best way to do that is to ensure that we do go with close-ups. Extreme close-ups can be quite intimidating, but can also be quite useful if you're demonstrating an object. And I use extreme close-ups here with the ScreenFlow program to actually show you things on the screen, even though I keep a bit of a distance away. Those of you who also follow Jim Boot, you'll notice he uses a slightly closer shot. I'm a little less attractive, so therefore I have to zoom out a little bit wider and to fit me all in, but I also just prefer a slightly looser shot. But hopefully I'm close enough that you can in most instances see my eyes and my lips moving to assist with communication, particularly those of you from America who struggle with our Australian accents. It helps if you can see our lips moving. Want to just, also on framing, I watched this video during the week, and this is actually what got me thinking about the terms about framing for this week, and this is from Rusty Brick. I asked his permission if he wouldn't mind if I talked about this video in terms of a framing issue. I saw this video and I thought, this is a fairly typical mistake people make when they're doing their blogs. Now, I'm not saying that we're not going to comment too much initially on the content. Incidentally, he has some great websites, the rustybrick.com, although I haven't been this one before, but his tweet stream I've been following for as long as I've been on Twitter, and he produces and gives a lot of really great information. But back to the video. First thing I want to talk about here is I want to just talk about the framing. Now, this is probably a medium close-up, but we haven't got our framing right. Now, there's a thing called the rule of thirds, which we're going to show in a moment. And the rule of thirds basically states that when you're framing up a camera, now, Rusty Brick there, you just need to tilt your lens, your laptop lid forward a little bit so that we lined it all up. The rule of thirds states quite clearly that you divide the screen that you're looking at. This works as equally as well for photography as it does for video, incidentally. You divide your screen into thirds lines, as you can see here. The trick to it, or the key to it, is that research and all that sort of stuff suggests that where the third lines intersect is where the most interest lies. So if we look at the top picture there, what we can see is a bird centered up on the screen, and there really isn't nothing much wrong with that. But if we look at exactly the same shot framed correctly, or framed using the rule of thirds, what we can see is that it looks far more dynamic. We get a little bit of what we call looking room, and we'll talk in a moment about looking room, but the whole image gives us a greater sense of dynamism. If we move to a scenery type situation, and this is a really nice photo there, once again with the rule of the third lines put on there, what we can see is that the horizon line really works best when it is at the top third or the bottom third line. When I was in high school, I remember them talking about this and saying that you should never draw a horizon line through the middle, and it didn't make sense to me, but now that I've seen it, it does actually make sense. And if we were to drop the horizon line down there, that picture would lack as much drama as it does. We wouldn't have a look at the foreground. Incidentally, as we move through, we'll also see some other examples of that. This one here, the bird at the intersecting point, certainly gives us a lot of room to look and move in the picture. Another issue when it comes to framing is making sure that we give our subjects looking room. And just to use this as an example, this is obviously a photograph, but looking room, when you are turning side on, as I am doing now, you need to ensure that your subject has looking room. If we give the example that they show here, there's the photo without images. If we center up the subject, what we suddenly start seeing is we start having too much room behind their head over here, and then we're not giving the subject enough room to look into. Particularly with video, if we're following someone, we need to make sure that as they're able to move, that the camera can move and keep with them and give them space to look to. It just looks wrong with framing like this, as we can see here, although obviously we've lost the image there. The other thing for those of you who are doing blogs is it's really important to engage your audience. The eyes are the most important part of an image when people are looking at them. And it's really important that you look at what I'm looking at here, and that is straight down the lens, because it's like looking someone in the eye. Coming back to Rusty Brick's video, what we can see is he does that really well. He doesn't have to give looking room because he's looking directly at the camera, although if he was to frame something up a little bit interesting over here and frame himself up a little bit left and a little bit more onto the side and turn side on, that would be fantastic. The other thing to do is obviously raise the level up. I mentioned that the eyes are the windows to the soul, and the eyes should always hit that third line, ideally at the intersecting points, but if it can't intersect there, at least make sure that the eyes are at the third line, either at the top third line, which is typically where you want to be, or if you have a specific reason, drop it right the way down and show the images behind you and above you with the third line there. The other thing to note here, and this is probably because I would imagine that he's using a webcam, is just want to talk a bit about white balance. So I've sort of mentioned it a few times over the past few weeks, particularly in regards to our background being a little bit too blue. Well, what we've done is, or what white balance is, for those of you who are used to using SLRs, you will have seen this as well, digital SLRs, and anyone who's been using a video camera over the years, you'll know that there is often white balance controls. Essentially what white balance is white balance is about telling the camera what colour true white is. If the camera can determine what colour white is and what colour black is, what it can do is it can then determine every colour in the spectrum. White is the presence of all colour, black is the absence of all colour. Now the camera can very easily detect what colour black is. It can shut its lens down, and a lot of the domestic cameras, as they turn on, they have a look at what's there while the lens is closed or the iris is closed, and then they know what black is. They just need to determine what colour white is. Now, where this becomes a problem is that our human eyes don't see this issue, but the reality is in the world today, where we see things, different lights will give a different colour temperature. Outdoor tends to be quite blue. The fluorescent lights that we work under here tend to be a touch green, and tungsten lights tend to be a bit orange. And you can kind of see my face is a touch orange at the moment. What we need to do is we need to let the camera know that. And so the really simple way is most cameras will have, and there's a range of different colour temperatures. Outdoor light, incidentally, can change, and I tend to do my blogs in the afternoon, which means that we can match the brightness or the colour temperature fairly closely with some scrims and some colour correction filters that we use on the lights that I'll show you in a moment. So we need to determine, and the camera needs to determine what colour white is. If the camera can determine what colour white is, we can get a correct colour balance. If it doesn't know what colour white is, it will have a guess, and it will inevitably be wrong. Most cameras will have on them, whether this be a simple webcam, they'll have something like this sort of table where you can set an automatic white balance, a preset white balance, a daylight, fluorescent, incandescent, or even a cloudy day type setting. And there's the speed light or for the flash. This is a flash table. But if we are going to use the manual setting, it's a really, really simple process. We turn our lights on, get our lights, and make sure that we put a bit of white paper up. Hold it up in front of our where our subject's going to be, hit the manual white balance button, and it will then register that as the colour white. So we need to make sure we've got a real white bit of paper to do that, and it will work fine. And that's what we've done now. The other thing that we've done here to match the white balance, because we know the outdoor light is very blue, and the lights, the cheap lights that we use from Bunnings, the hardware store, are a tungsten light, and in actual fact, we actually also have fluoros in this office. The tungsten lights are very orange. So what we've done is we've popped colour correction filters, a blue colour correction scrim gel on the front of our lights, clip them on with pegs to ensure that what we get out of the lights isn't quite as orange as it used to be. And so what we now see is that my face is correct colour balance and the background's the same colour balance. In summary, make sure you frame your shots right. Make sure if you're working in an online environment, you keep your images reasonably close, and make sure you give looking room if you're going to turn side on. The rule of thirds says place interesting objects on the third lines, as we saw in the pictures earlier, and Once you've done all of that, make sure you get your white balance right by ensuring that you have a consistent colour temperature, and if you can, set your controls manually. Look forward to speaking to you again next week. If you have any questions about online video production, please shoot me a tweet on Cam the Cameraman at Twitter, or shoot me an email at cameron@stuartmedia.biz.